What's up everyone, Joe Gray here today. Actually, I'm here today. I'm in my brother-in-law's garage where I have helped him set up his very own garage gym over the past few months. As you can see, his space is pretty tight and it is a multifunctional space for everything from storage to woodworking to laundry and more. When Justin and I first started planning his home gym, we had to be pretty picky. My friends over at EVOLPOW reached out with an offer to take a ride with their P3A tank all-in-one power rack, and Justin was instantly excited. This became the cornerstone of his garage gym for the past several months, and today we're going to perform a science experiment to see if an all-in-one that costs under $1,000 is good enough for most people or not. Today's video is going to be presented from two perspectives. Justin is an avid lifter, longtime athlete, but newbie in the home gym space. He has had this rack in his garage since early March. He has been taking notes as he performs his normal workout routines and is ready to share his thoughts. And then you have me, who has been lifting from home for over a decade, has spent more time thinking about and consuming information around home gym equipment than any sane person should. I've legit spent more on a couple cable attachments than this entire setup costs, and I'll be sharing my perspectives of this rack today as well. The idea is to look at this from an enthusiast perspective, someone looking at this with a lot of focus on specs and requirements for the rack, then compare that to someone who has lifted consistently for years but doesn't know gym equipment. And at the end, you can decide if this rack jives with you based on our different perspectives. Quick housekeeping items for you. This was sent to Justin via EVOLPOW for free, including the weights and bench and included accessories for sake of this review. My friends over at Living Fit also hooked us up with a free barbell, and Justin has some of my leftover toys and accessories laying around as well, basically putting his out-of-pocket expense at around $0. If you decide after watching this video that the EVOLPOW P3A tank upgraded all-in-one power rack is the right fit for you, the link in the description is an affiliate link, and I've got a discount code for you, which will give me a kickback and save you a couple of bucks, helping me to keep making videos just like this one and do my thing throughout the home gym community. Obviously, my hope is that none of that impacts my or Justin's judgment and feedback here today, but keep all of that in mind as we go. I appreciate your support. Let's dig in.
I'm Justin. I wanted to provide a little context on me, since you probably know Joe already. I'm someone who enjoys being active, including going to a commercial gym for the majority of the last 22 years. Over time, I've had tighter windows to squeeze in a workout between work and other responsibilities. About a year ago, when my local gym closed, I started to pick Joe's brain to try and find equipment on Marketplace to build my own garage gym. I found it difficult to distinguish between a good and a bad brand that would fit in my budget and fit in my space, allowing me to perform all the exercises I wanted to do. Joe sent me the link to the EVOLPOW P3A tank, and I began measuring and confirming if it would fit. Within a week, it was delivered to my door. Putting the rack together was simple enough, and this was my first piece of gym equipment. I was able to do most of it on my own and only asked for another set of hands at a couple points for convenience. Everything felt strong and secure at every step in the process. It feels great to be able to lift heavy weight with confidence in this rack. The J-hooks are easily adjustable, and I appreciate the larger ones that give me a little extra room for error when racking the weight. The design of the safety bar is more than just a pin that slides into place. There's a bracket section that slides onto the outside of the upright so it won't move out of place. I don't have a particularly large garage space, so it was important that the gym setup didn't take up too much floor area. The rack itself occupies about a 6 by 8 foot section, which is about as good as I could have hoped for. Best part is I don't have to travel from one end of the gym to the other to start my next exercise. Trade-off though is that it can feel a little crowded when trying to maneuver within the rack. I really wanted to get back to the basics, and this rack has certainly allowed me to do that with confidence. I've been able to perform all the basic exercises easily and efficiently using this setup. I can do everything from squats to upright rows. Benching is a breeze in this rack. I can start with a flat bench exercise, and when I'm ready to switch to incline, it's a quick adjustment. Squats are my favorite exercise. However, I've recently had limited access to a rack, and it can be challenging to safely squat without one. I don't have that issue now. I've been able to squat heavy, knowing that the J-hooks and safety bars will allow me to do so with little risk. The overall size of the rack can be a little limiting when trying to perform certain movements from the inside. Anyone with above average height might be limited vertically within the rack when performing exercises such as standing military press. The distance from the front to the back may be a little narrow for some as well. When trying to do power cleans, there's a little room for error when trying to avoid banging the bar against the uprights.
All right, so we've got a 4-post rack with a multi-grip pull-up bar over the top, a built-in functional trainer style cable system, and it has weight storage and barbell storage on the far back, a landmine on the front, adjustable dip handles, J-cups, and safety spotters. Their site and offerings continue to evolve. Right now, you can upgrade that weight storage to a more typical 6-post storage option, add jammer arms, and a few other bundles and options as well. From the most basic offering to the most decked out, this is a pretty stacked all-in-one rack on paper. The P3A tank is just over 7 feet tall. As a 6-foot tall lifter, this means I can't do much inside the rack in terms of overhead stuff. If I go to do pull-ups, I'm going to need to pull my feet up to do them. The benefit to a shorter rack, of course, is that it fits easier in more spaces. The website claims the J-cups are ready for 1,000 pounds and the safeties for 700 pounds. The problem with that weight claim is that it is a static weight rating. We don't typically gently drop a bar for safety purposes, so that rating doesn't translate exactly to what a real-life lifting experience might need. Some research tells me that we can assume somewhere around a 3x rating to convert from static to dynamic, meaning we might be looking at roughly 350 pounds for the J-cups and 250 pounds for the safeties. The J-cups and safeties have UHMW protection, which is a nice touch, but the J-cups are missing it on the backside of the J-cup. This is a little bit of an oversight since you typically re-rack the bar by essentially slamming it into the backside of the J-cup, then letting it rest down. So you are either going to deal with scuffing up and damaging your barbell a little bit, or J-cups, or need to adhere some type of UHMW or protection with some form of adhesive. The rack holes are numbered on the front post, which is something I really didn't expect to see. They do skip every other hole, I'm assuming to save a little bit of money on laser cutting costs, but you kind of know which hole is which with every other labeled. They do not number the back posts though. This would be helpful for consistently setting your J-cups for regular exercises like squats and bench. You can get some stickers from places like Plate Snacks or just use some tape or paint pen, which is what I did on my old rack, and mark your spots. But laser cut would be a little more industry standard today. The inside rack depth is going to be a little tight for some lifters, but I was always able to squat even up to 550 pounds in a smaller rack, so you can definitely get accustomed to this. The paint, overall aesthetic, even the nameplate cross member is actually pretty well done. Looking at the rack after 3 months of Justin's use, it is holding together pretty well. Since attachments don't have UHMW on the inside contact points with the rack, since the cable machine slides up and down the front uprights, and this is a multi-use space, I assume we'll see some scratches and scuffs and over the course of time, a few dents and dings here and there, but even my much beefier and prettier and much more expensive rack has signs of use. Remember, this is gym equipment. It is perfectly okay for it to be used and abused.
The gym came with several cable attachments, including a lap bar, straight bar, and 2 individual hand grips. This is a great set of attachments to start with, as they give you plenty of variety in the exercises you can do. The cable system moves easily to the needed height, locks into place nicely, and feels secure. When doing an exercise like cable press, it's easy to get into the position I need, and the attachments stay in place without moving too much during the exercise. The cable rack sits on the back side of the gym, centered between the 2 back uprights. It's out of the way and doesn't interfere with whatever it is I'm trying to do. One exception is that the cable rack will limit how far back you can slide your bench. This could limit some of the things you want to do, otherwise you can just utilize the front uprights. When you have a higher weight on the cable rack, it moves smoothly throughout the exercise. However, if the weight is too light, you can notice that it doesn't move quite as smoothly. Be aware of the cable's positioning when using them, and be sure they don't twist. If so, the cables will twist at different points throughout the system. For those of you who really prefer seated rows, fear not. There's a station opposite the T-bar station that allows you to do seated rows and includes a foot stop to brace against. I have a rower at home, but it doesn't allow me to set the desired resistance level for my goals, so I was pretty pumped about this. I have my rack set up with the back against the wall. Moving the larger plates on and off the cable rack from the front side can be challenging, as it's kind of a narrow space and you have to rack from the side. Also, with the larger plate, it leaves you a little less room for error when trying to avoid the uprights. With some awareness, it shouldn't be a major issue. However, you may unexpectedly hit the uprights, assuming you had a bit more room.
There are a few nitpicky items I'll dig into here for the cable machine. First, the The pulleys are plastic. Most of the home gym cable machines are using aluminum pulleys now because they move a bit easier, thus creating a smoother experience. My FT2 has plastic pulleys, and as long as I keep the guide rods oiled, I never notice an issue, but this is definitely the budget approach in today's home gym environment. The cable trolleys adjust up and down the uprights and lock into place with a pop pin. The only downside here is that the pop pin can drag on the upright, leading to scratches. But in general, they adjust pretty well. Not as smooth as my FT2, which is a dedicated functional trainer, but nothing to complain about. The low row footplate is a nice added touch, though it does require you to sit on the floor, so you'll likely want a pad or something down there. The rack is missing a more dedicated lat pull down experience though. There's no seat, no fixed high pulley, and no rollers to keep you locked into position. Depending on how tall you are, or more specifically how long your torso and arms are, you'll need to decide to either sit down on the floor or on a bench that lets you get full range of motion, because again, the rack being 7 feet tall could be a concern for those types of movements. While the rack does have independent cable trolleys, they are both fed from the same weight stack in the back, meaning that you don't truly have individual resistance per side like you would in my FT2 that has individual stacks per cable. This means that some dual arm exercises like cable flies are a little less isolateral and a little more of a dual arm press. You might notice some wonkiness if one arm lags behind the other, and because you only have one weight stack, if you wanted to superset something like seated rows and curls, you have to load it up for rows, do your set, walk around and unload some weights, do your curls, load it back up for rows, do your set. You get the idea. Not as convenient as a full weight stack or individual plate-loaded pulleys. The plate-loaded weight stack also needs to be consistently loaded on each side. No issues if we are off a bit, but you don't want to load 55 pounds on one side and nothing on the other. This could potentially lead the weight trolley to lean towards one side and even warp the guide rods if you got really excessive. As a cable attachment fiend, the provided attachments are they have rubber grips, no knurling, they're black powder coated, and are basically in every way possible budget. These would show up in my gym and instantly disappear. The only other item I will gripe about is that because the cable trolleys use the same upright as the dip handles and safety bars, you're going to need to move those when adjusting the height for your cable work. This is something you would have to do on any combination style rack, including the rack I currently use. So it is just the nature of going for a lot in one package. But the overall setup of the cable machine, utilizing the front posts, running to the back so the weight stacks aren't in the way of lifting inside the rack, the included attachments, foot plate, even the storage included, means out the gate we have access to a lot of exercises, can load them up fairly well, can superset if we plan ahead accordingly, and get an effective workout done in a very tight space.
I was excited to see the T-bar station as a part of the gym. I like the variance in position it gives you when trying to switch up certain routines. It sits at the front corner of the rack and is just another great use of space. A T-bar attachment was also included and is easy to use, allowing you to do upright rows using the power bar from that position. Straight bar military press is one of my favorite workouts, but as someone with lower back pain, I want to be careful with that particular movement as it can put stress on the lower back. T-bar station allows me to do similar movements with relatively heavy weight. Tricep dip attachments were also included, which was great to see as I normally perform dips at home using a bench or a chair. The attachments lock into place at any of the same points as the cable attachments, giving you a range of heights. This not only allows me a greater range of motion while performing the exercise, but now I have the option of using a weighted belt to add resistance to the exercise. Often individual dip stations you could purchase were set a bit too low to allow for that. The pull-up station on top offers a variety of hand placements. It isn't too wide and has solid grip. I can do several variations of pull-ups while really swinging my weight and don't notice any movement at all in the rack. What I appreciate is the multi-grip pull-up station complements the other attachments by providing additional grip options for pull movements. Plate storage was an area I didn't consider much prior to looking into purchasing a home gym. The EVOLPOW rack offers 2 plate storage spots, one on each side. They aren't meant to hold more than a couple large plates or a few smaller ones. However, between those areas, the cable rack, the Olympic barbell, I tend to keep most of the plates off the ground and out of the way.
Okay, from the enthusiast perspective here, the EVOLPOW rack doesn't fit the industry standard 3x3 upright build. Most racks will have either 5/8 inch hardware or 1-inch hardware as well. The benefits to going with this industry standard of 3x3 and 5/8 1-inch is cross compatibility for attachments. The rack I have in my garage has some unique keyhole options that have 1-inch and 5/8 inch, but it is still 3x3, which means I can grab attachments from Rogue, Rep, Bells of Steel, French Sport, Prime Fitness, Dialed Motion, Bulletproof Fitness, and any number of other companies. Anyone making unique attachments is almost guaranteed to be making them for this industry standard design. This means that any attachments you don't have for this rack are going to need to be offered by EVOLPOW, found online and very closely verified to fit, or you'll need to go completely custom, which could be more expensive than the entire rack itself costs. The good news is, with weight storage, dip attachments, and a landmine, pull-up bar, etc., I don't think there is a ton of additional attachments you might be looking for anytime soon. Now, compare something like the built-in landmine to the Clever-built Adroit landmine, which has UHMW inserts to protect your barbell and other unique features. This landmine is pretty basic. That said, I've been using a pretty basic landmine in my space for quite a while and not had any major issues. The dip handles are adjustable in height, but not in width, so you're going to be stuck using one of these options. The handles also have a rubber grip instead of being knurled. The downside here is that at some point these can come loose, begin to rotate in your hands under load, or even come off entirely, leaving you with a bare metal post for dips. The rack has band pegs. Probably wouldn't recommend using them unless you have a lot of weight on the storage posts. Since this rack isn't meant to be bolted down, even though it weighs roughly 275 pounds, that upward force of a band snapping back and forth could be problematic. The rack has a battle rope anchor, which is something I don't even have on my rack, which is pretty cool. I don't think Justin has the space for that in here, so it will probably go unused for a long time, but it doesn't seem to be in the way, so let's just call it an added benefit. The weight storage in the back is a nice addition, but I would probably recommend going with the 6-post weight storage upgrade option for an extra $100. The reason is that having only one storage post means you need to take all the plates off to get to the one you want, constantly juggling plates in your hand, on the post, on the ground, on a bar, etc. With the 3-post storage option on each side that they offer, we can set up plates in a somewhat more uniform fashion and take one off at a time as needed.
Normally, I need to make some sacrifice or compromise in order to get a good workout in. At the gym, while I have access to a variety of equipment, that access can be limited by the amount of people at the gym. Being able to plan and execute a variety of exercises quickly with zero interference, other than by the wife or the dog, is such an advantage. What I love is that I'm able to perform all of my favorite compound exercises, while also having plenty of options for isolation work as well. The ability to stage multiple exercises at the same time has been a game changer. I can set up the cable attachments in the front, while also using the back of the rack to do straight bar exercises. I love the pull-up bar on top with multiple grip types that are effective without being a little too aggressive. With the EVOLPOW P3A tank, I really didn't have to make many sacrifices. Considering the space limitations, the setup really made the most of what was available by providing a variety of options for a full body workout. Overall, I've been incredibly pleased with this gym rack and my experience using it. Going into this, I knew what equipment I liked to use at the gym, but I wasn't sure which ones I wanted to prioritize at home. In recent years, either because of limited equipment at home or because of crowded gyms, tended to just do a few workouts per muscle group. This led to injury. Younger me could get away with training hard in just a few areas to get in shape, but it's been incredibly helpful to have the option to pretty much do a completely different workout each day should I choose to, and really get after it with no excuses or limitations.
Okay, the reason I sent this rack to Justin in the first place is because it has no place in a home gym like mine. I'm pushing 550-pound squats, which is almost guaranteed beyond the weight limit of the J-cups and safeties, and even my bench work is in the 300+ pound range. Me pushing numbers well beyond average makes this rack not only less than ideal, but possibly straight up dangerous. The rack is too short for me to do some of my accessory work, and the cable solution is never going to compete against my FT2 and my fan favorite Voltras. And as I mentioned, the included accessories and attachments are just not up to par with my expectations at this point in my home gym journey. The lack of the industry standard uprights, cross members, and hardware is the final nail in the coffin for someone like me who's going to spend thousands of dollars on custom aesthetic attachments, pins, 3D printed accessories, and more to outfit their rack to the very last detail. All right, Justin, so you've had the rack, in your gym for about 3 months. If somebody reached out to me and said, hey, I have this new rack and it does all these different things, kind of like this guy does, and I asked you, hey, do you want this one instead of the EVOLPOW that you got now, would you take it? Is there something here that you're missing that you're looking for somewhere else?
Yeah, that's a good question. And something I've thought about as I've been kind of utilizing this gym, considering my needs and things I like. This really hits the mark, and I don't really find that anything is missing at this stage.
All right, my takeaway from this experiment is that if you are or plan to be like me, skip this rack. If you enjoy the finer things in life, hate seeing an extra zero in your savings account, or are pushing big lifts, look at something a little more industry standard where the weight ratings are higher, your options for attachments and accessories are greater, and you can avoid any FOMO.
If you're like me and want to grab a rack that fits in a small space, does a tremendous amount of stuff, all on a fairly tight budget, then the EVOLPOW P3A tank all-in-one power rack is a great option.
Justin has had almost nothing but good feedback over the last several months for this rack, and has almost entirely ignored all of the nuances and nitpicky items that pop out to me, while enjoying being able to lift at home in a small space on his own time. The question is, which camp are you in? Are you a home gym enthusiast, or looking for a budget piece to get the job done? This is the first time I've done a video like this. If you enjoyed it, please let me know. Give me a thumbs up, drop a comment below asking for more videos just like this. This will let me know that I should do more, and it also helps companies who might consider participating in such experiments and videos that these are projects that you want to see come from me. If you have an idea for another video somewhat like this, maybe another piece that you think I should take a look at in a similar vein, drop that below as well. Remember that the link in the description is there for you to grab this rack at a discount if you choose to do so. And if you are more of a home gym enthusiast and rack junkie, or just want to see what that life looks like, check out this video on my current home gym power rack. That is it for the EVOLPOW P3A tank science experiment today. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back with more home gym awesomeness for all of you very soon.